Hello everyone and welcome to Week 2, Introduction to Socio-Cultural Perspectives on Adult Literacy. The goal this week and the goal of this module is to strengthen your understanding of what we mean by socio-cultural perspective on adult literacy. Some of this mini lecture will bring back the big ideas and some of the slides we covered in the course introduction. So I want to emphasize again that we will be using a socio-cultural lens on our work this semester, specifically with the 1, 2, 3 project. And I think the best way to get us started is to establish a foundational understanding of some of the terms through the work of some well-known scholars in the field. So you've probably heard me say socio-cultural perspectives, plural. Think of this as kind of an umbrella term under which there are many different ways to go. For example, you've heard me say literacy as practice or a literacy event, situated literacy. There's critical literacy, and there are feminist and post-colonial views, just to name a few. I'm bringing back our definition of reading from the course introduction to refresh your memory and to help set up the content for this module. Of course, this definition is not written in stone. As you may recall, we pulled together several different ideas, such as taking in, meaning making, embeddedness, purpose, social and cultural context, and positioning of the reader. We borrowed many of these ideas from Freire's notion of reading the world. So I hope you recognize how this definition, or maybe we should call it description, points to reading and literacy more broadly as something people do rather than a set of skills that we have. And here again is the egg model to help us visualize literacy as a practice, beginning with the encounter with a text that was created for a purpose, to function within a context, by an author, for an intended audience. That's all of the yoke area, right? And then it's taken in by a reader who makes meaning through and with all the layers of the social and cultural, the history, language, norms, discourse, and so on, the egg white, yes? So we'll just kind of look at this for just a moment and get our mind kind of wrapped around the egg model again. And here is a different image. It's not really a model, but in order to do a hard compare and contrast for the purpose of teaching here, I wanted to share this image of a reading profile. And for anyone who has taken Read 602, or if you have a reading or English language arts background, perhaps you are familiar with reading profiles. But a reading profile shows the level of someone's discrete skills. For example, word recognition, spelling, word meaning, silent reading. There are a few more that aren't shown here. And the purpose of developing a reading profile is to measure and understand a person's literacy skills. So this would be a skills-based perspective on reading and literacy, and we might put this into the broad bucket of cognitive perspective. Maybe you hear it called the science of reading, or as Brian Street, a literacy scholar, might say, the autonomous perspective, meaning that we isolate and measure skills outside or without or void of a context. So to do a hard compare contrast here, we are not thinking about skills and literacy skills this semester. We are taking, of course, the sociocultural perspective, and very much thinking about literacy as something we do in a context. So it's not that one perspective is better or more important, and we could even make the case that you might need some of these skills to fully engage in a literacy practice with a difficult written text perhaps, but the skills approach is distinctly different from the socio-cultural approach. These two approaches or lenses come from different philosophical and theoretical underpinnings. So when we do our work on the 1-2-3 project, our purpose is not to measure or fix or improve a person's reading skills or even the text itself. Our purpose in doing research with a sociocultural lens is to study the literacy practice, the ways that people engage with the text and experience the text, for better, for worse, however it works out. It's not right, it's not wrong, we're just there to study how it happens. So this brings us to the so what question, right? So what does the sociocultural perspective do for us as adult educators? Why do we bother, and why do we have to take a whole class where we can't do anything but sociocultural work? What does it bring to us? So according to Perry 2012, importantly, conceptualizing literacy as something one does as opposed to a skill or ability one has helps us understand the real world ways in which real people actually engage with real texts, I'm quoting here, which ultimately could help educators make formal literacy instruction more meaningful and relevant. Perry goes on to add, and I quote, understanding literacy as a socially contextualized practice helps us understand the ways in which practices may vary across diverse communities and the ways in which they are also dynamic and malleable. And finally, Perry adds, the focus on issues of power also helps us understand issues of access that people may have, the ways in which social, economic, and political structures may shape literacy practices, and the ways in which people appropriate or reject certain practices. And finally, I will add that there are important implications for us as adult educators to improve our instruction. And here, take the word improve broadly, not that we want to measure and fix, but that by developing a deeper understanding of how people are truly engaging with a particular text, a training that we had to create, or a form that we had to make sure people sign, or whatever the case may be, right, will help make us ultimately a better adult educators. So this brings us to the end of the mini lecture. I'm going to stop here and just recap the big ideas for us to take away this week. And we really want to develop a foundational understanding of the socio-cultural perspective, or perhaps some of the different perspectives. What it is and what it is not, right? It's not a skills-based way of looking at literacy. It's literacy as doing, literacy as always in a context. And we also want to kind of develop some ideas of our own that we can take back to our work-life context about important implications socio-cultural work might have for us. These are things you're going to want to keep in mind for your 1, 2, 3 project as well. And this brings us to the end. I very much look forward to seeing what you have to say in our online discussion about this topic. Have a great week.